Happy Sunday. I'm Reverend Kathy McCall, and I'm the minister at Unity North Spiritual Center in Coon Rapids, Minnesota. Welcome to our Sunday lesson on August 30th, 2020. The last day of August already. Can you believe it? The summer is flying by. Well, if you're new with us, please know that whoever you are, wherever you are on your spiritual path, you are welcome, and we're glad you're with us today. If you're new, you can go to our website, unitynorthmn for Minnesota.org, unitynorthmn.org, and there you'll find our events, upcoming events, and we do have some great ones, especially our Good For You days, which is we've converted our one-day healing fair into a 7 or 8 day virtual experience. So there are healers, there are practitioners, there are classes, and I'll kick it off on Friday evening, September 18th, with a dream class called The Transformative Power of Dreams at 7 p.m. So check it out. And you can register for whatever events or practitioners you want to experience. And then following that, just not more than a week or two later, on October 3rd, Saturday, we're hosting Dr. Matthew Fox, who is just an exciting, world-renowned speaker. He's a spiritual theologian. He's been known in that arena for many, many years. He's traveled all over the world speaking and teaching. He has over 40 books now. And he's truly one of my favorite speakers through all my years of ministry. So I'm so blessed, and we are so blessed to be able to host him. And that will be at 6:30 p.m. Saturday, October 3rd, Minnesota time, or Central Time, and 4:30 Pacific Coast time. So check it out. You can register today online at our website. And with that, we'll do our daily word first, and then move into our lesson, which today is called Touching His Garment. The word for today is light. The light of God surrounds me. When darkness casts shadows in my life, or in the life of someone I care about, I call upon the divine light that lives within me and expresses as me. Just as the light of the sun illuminates the sky, the light of God illuminates my mind, brightens my soul, and warms my heart. Even during life's darkest moments, the light of God is always shining within me, just as it shines within all people. Basking in this light, I find the strength and power to lift myself up. Through acts of service and loving kindness, I can be the light that helps guide others through any darkness they may be facing. Every smile, kind word, thoughtful deed, or offer of help has the potential to brighten someone's day. From Psalm 112, verse 4, they rise in the darkness as a light for the upright. They are gracious, merciful, and righteous. And now, our lesson, Touching His Garment. Mary Morrissey, New Thought minister and creator of the Prosperity Plus program, tells a story about guidance she received one day in the shower. Actually, the shower is a very good place to receive divine guidance. Something about being all alone in stillness with the water running down. Anyway, she heard an inner voice say, "Take a bungee jump." Well, ignoring it at first, she finally had to give in because it just continued to persist. So she decided to act on it. And at that time, she was the minister of a church that had about 150 people. And she'd been doing that for 7 years. And she was about to take a leap of faith, which would result in the Living Enrichment Center. And there was a time when that center still existed that it attracted about 3,000 people on a Sunday. But first, she had to take a bungee jump. She called a bungee jump place on the phone, and they assured her that she would be trained by a highly qualified bungee jump master. So she drove down to the place and went to the site and prepared to jump. And she saw this young guy coming toward her and realized he was about 17 or 18 years old, and he had on a t-shirt that said, "Bungee Jump Master," across the front. Well, he took her up in a crane, and he said to her, "I'm going to count backwards from 10 to 1, and when I get to 1, I don't want you to hesitate, just jump." Well, he got to 1, and she hesitated. And she said later that every cell of her body was screaming, "No." But, her inner guidance said yes. Also, in that moment of hesitation, she looked out onto the horizon and she saw a cross on top of a church steeple. And in that second, she knew she could trust in the divine, and she jumped. And it became a powerful metaphor for her leap of faith into her expanding ministry and her greater strength and power in the next phase of her life. Well, this is a time when we all need to call forth our strength and power. As we move toward Election Day, everything seems to be heating up. People's tempers as racism and the fight against it accelerates. And our planet is heating up. Wildfires throughout California, devastating hurricanes and floods, all worsened by global warming. Well, Charles Fillmore, co-founder of Unity, described the incredible power and strength that one can release through faith. He said, "Just as the electric current precipitates certain metals in an acid solution, so faith stirs into action the electrons of the human brain. And acting concurrently with the spiritual ethers, these electrons hasten nature and produce quickly what ordinarily would require months of seed time and harvest." So we all need faith and strength now, personally and collectively. Why is faith so powerful? Well, the great Unity writer and teacher Catherine Ponder said, "Because when you activate faith, you set into motion a mind energy that is thousands of times more powerful than electricity. Our mind power of faith then generates an energy that contacts the universal energy and causes circumstances and events to be created that make your goal of faith possible. Activated faith releases a vibration that is endowed with a fantastic attracting power. The drawing power of faith is not possessed by any other power of mind that we have. When strength and faith are coupled together, the result is incredible." Jesus often emphasized the power of faith to strengthen and heal. In Matthew 5:24, it reads, "A great crowd followed him and thronged about him. And there was a woman who had had a flow of blood for 12 years, and who had suffered much under many physicians, and had spent all that she had and was no better, but rather grew worse. Well, she had heard the reports about Jesus, and she came behind him in the crowd, and she touched his garment. For she said, "If I touch even his garment, I shall be made well." And immediately the hemorrhage ceased, and she felt in her body that she was healed of her disease. And Jesus, perceiving in himself that power had gone forth from him, immediately turned about in the crowd and said, "Who touched my garment?" And his disciples said to him, "You see the crowd pressing around you, and yet you say, 'Who touched me?'" And he looked around to see who had done it. But the woman, knowing what had been done to her, came in fear and trembling, and fell down before him and told him the whole truth. And he said to her, "Daughter, your faith has made you well. Go in peace and be healed of your disease." She believed that if she simply touched his garment, she would be made well. This was the power of her faith, and touching the garment caused power to flow from him, even though he did not see her and did not consciously send that power. Activated faith releases a vibration that is endowed with a fantastic attracting power. She touched his garment and attracted the power, and it flowed through her, healing her. So we can ask, each of us, we can ask ourselves, how can I touch his garment? We can think of this as a metaphor for his presence or his consciousness. God is everywhere present, and Christ, the Christ, is the divine idea or perfect pattern of wholeness in all of creation. And when we reach out in faith to this presence and power, we touch his garment, and the power flows through us. Jesus placed special emphasis upon persistence in faith, showing through parable and teaching that success in healing or anything else comes to those who do not give up, to those who are determined spiritual warriors. Faith works through perseverance. So this woman had searched for 12 long years and still had faith. She never gave up. Well, there was a man who had to have a little faith about how his medical bill would be paid. So he suffered a heart attack, and he had bypass surgery, and he awakened to find himself in the care of nuns at a Catholic hospital. And as he was recovering, a nun asked how he was going to pay his bill. And he replied in a raspy voice, "No health insurance." And the nun asked if he had money in the bank. He replied, "No money in the bank." And nun asked, "Well, do you have a relative who could help?" He said, "Just a spinster sister who is a nun." And the nun, slightly perturbed about that, said, "Nuns are not spinsters. Nuns are married to God." And the patient replied, "In that case, please send the bill to my brother-in-law." Well, there's a true story of another woman who never gave up. She said, "I fell down a flight of stairs, and I was injured so badly my lower spinal column was in almost continuous distressing pain. I had frequent chiropractic treatments for it, but getting in and out of bed became a very careful process. And I would be somewhat stiff in the morning getting up, but even so, I continued to rise at 6:30 a.m. for meditation every day and to prepare breakfast, and this was the pattern of my life for 7 years. But one evening, my husband stayed up late to watch a TV show, and I went to bed early. And as I did, I sensed a presence standing close beside me on the left. And a male voice said to me, "This night, sleep on your stomach, Alice." I started to protest I couldn't sleep on my stomach, but instead I obeyed. And in the morning, just before waking, I distinctly felt the touch of hands massaging, manipulating, and pressing lightly on the lower region of my back. I slipped out of bed as though there had never been an injury. For 3 full days, I was in a silent, prayerful state filled with awe and reverence and consumed with wonder. On the 3rd night, I went to bed early, and when I closed the door, the entire wall facing me disappeared. And where there had been a large window and tall furniture, there was now a brilliant panel of light. And in the center was a figure in full height, with his hands outstretched, palms upward. And he was showing me how my back was healed. The figure appeared to be androgynous, and the face was so luminous I could not make out the features. He wore a single white garment, and afterward I remained in that state of grace for some time. And even today, more than 30 years later, the event is indelibly etched in my mind. Of the initial visitation, I've been asked if I thought it was Jesus. I don't know. I certainly only know that it was a Christ-like figure, and I'm content with that. So this woman persisted in daily prayer and meditation, and yet sometimes healing seems to come even in spite of us. Grace activates our faith and our strength. Faith or belief works either positively or negatively. Catherine Ponder said, "Sick folks have faith, plenty of it, but in the wrong thing. Your attention is your faith. Whatever gets your attention gets your faith. Whatever you give your attention to, you have faith in. Whatever you're deeply concerned about, you have faith in. Whatever you expect and prepare for, you have faith in." A woman kept attending healing lectures and repeatedly put her name in a church prayer ministry to receive healing prayers. Yet she remained as sick as ever and could not understand why. It was revealed that she kept immersing her attention in the subject of disease, and she kept listening to descriptions of all the health problems enjoyed by a neurotic neighbor, and kept talking about her own problems. Her faith was a powerful force, but her attention to ill health was what she focused her faith on. So we can ask ourselves the question, do we hope that our health or our financial condition is going to improve? And then do we still continue to worry about it? If so, can we say that we are not touching his garment. We are not using the attracting power of faith. Do we hold back the flow by thoughts of lack and limitation, or do we step out there with no apparent step beneath our feet and touch his garment? Enter into his consciousness, thereby activating our faith and strength and attracting what we need. When we work with the law enough, we come to know that we have the power of co-creativity to manifest what we set our minds to or what we have faith in. It's like Yoda in The Empire Strikes Back, when Luke's vehicle sinks into the swamp and Yoda encourages him to use his powers to bring it out. Luke manages to lift his ship just a little bit and then it sinks back into the swamp. Then Yoda lifts his hands or claws and brings the vehicle up and sets it down gently on the land. And Luke, very stunned, says, "I don't believe it." And Yoda replies, "And that is your problem." Well, one man had complete faith that he would get out of jury duty. Jurors were being questioned about their availability for this week-long trial in the courtroom of Judge Thomas Brett. And this man was absolutely convinced he would get out of this. So he asked to be excused, and he said his wife was going to conceive a baby. And Judge Brett asked, "Don't you mean she's going to deliver a baby?" And the man said, "No, she's going to conceive a baby." Well, the judge excused him from jury duty. He said he wasn't sure that he understood, but either way, he said, "You ought to be there." Well, Jesus said, "Have faith in God. Truly I say to you, whoever says to this mountain, 'Be taken up and cast into the sea,' and does not doubt in his heart, but believes that what he said will come to pass, it will be done for him. Therefore, I tell you, whatever you ask in prayer, believe that you have received it, and it will be yours." When we doubt, we can ask as Thomas, the doubting apostle, did, "Help thou my unbelief." Help my unbelief, God. Remove my doubt, restore my faith. You know, there's an American proverb that you cannot leap a 20-foot chasm in two 10-foot jumps. Activating our faith means fully taking the leap. The Christ, the garment of the Christ, is on the other side, or at least out there above the chasm. Imagine yourself leaping into this beautiful garment that fills us with light, leaping into this consciousness of the Christ. Emily Cady said, "Affirm your possession of the good that you desire. Have faith in it, because you are working with divine law and cannot fail. Do not be argued off your basic principles by anyone, and sooner will the heavens fall than that you fail to get that which you desire. All things whatsoever you pray and ask for, believe that you receive them, and you shall have them." Ashley Brilliant, the great humorist, has some wonderful titles for his books, and I like one especially called "I Feel Much Better Now That I've Given Up Hope." And yet there's some truth in that. Hope is really important, but we also move beyond hope into a deeper expression of faith. In the book, I Am With You Always, another woman tells of her healing. She said, "I had been sick with a low-grade infection for several months. Antibiotics and other attempts at healing had offered only temporary relief, and I found myself again tired and feverish with pain in my ears and my throat. Not sick enough to go to bed, but not well enough to function effectively. Exhausted and discouraged, I stopped by a friend's house and complained about my condition, and I asked, 'Why can't I get well?' Well, this friend was a professional therapist and a hypnotist, and she suggested we ask my unconscious to answer. I agreed, and we proceeded to induce a light trance. And after offering some relaxing images, he said, 'If a healer were to come to you, you can allow that healer to come now.' I thought, well, as long as I have a choice, why should I choose anyone other than Christ himself? Other than Jesus himself. Immediately I found myself in the presence of someone who wore a robe and had long hair. But the most powerful part of the image was an intense white light that radiated from him, and it seemed to permeate me, vibrating palpably and soothing profoundly. I don't know how long I sat in that energy, but I remember feeling at the time his presence seemed remarkably accessible. It did not seem to require any sophisticated preparation or saintliness on my part. I felt entitled to be in his presence and healed. And when I came back into a normal waking state, I no longer felt sick, and the infection did not return in the following weeks and months. I was left with a distinct impression that we can expect such an experience to happen if we allow ourselves to expect it. It was as though I was remembering my true nature. Calling the power of faith and strength into activity can be done through first affirmation. I just like to say faith, faith, faith. Or I have faith in the healing power of God that works mightily in me now. Or I have faith that all things are working together for my good. I am strengthened through the power of faith. I now activate my spiritual power of strength and faith. Let us dwell often on scriptural promises. That's the second one. Your faith has made you whole. So my faith has made me whole. And 3, we can spend time in the silence asking God to remove our doubt and transform us with a mighty faith. And finally 4, focus on what you want, not on what you don't. Because our faith follows our focus, what we put our attention on. Focus on what you want, not what you don't. Charles Fillmore said, the writer of the epistles said, and incidentally, a Sunday school child said that an epistle is the wife of an apostle. Well, the epistles say, what shall I more say? For the time will fail me to tell of Gideon, Barak, Samson, Jephthah, Deborah, of David and Samuel and the prophets, whose faith subdued kingdoms, wrought righteousness, obtained promises, stopped the mouths of lions, quenched the power of fire, escaped the edge of the sword, from weakness were made strong, waxed mighty in war, turned aside armies, and received their dead by a resurrection. Whatever your desires, you need not despair or hesitate to claim their fulfillment. For one who was awake said, all things are possible for one who believes. Let us activate our spiritual power of faith, call forth our strength, and then we too can overcome the challenges of our time and perhaps even perform miracles. God bless you. Have an amazing week.